Morning, everybody. Today is Shabbos, Daf Yomi Shabbos. We will go over again from the last few words of Yomi Gimel and Beis, 113b4. Amar Ba'acha Bar Abba Amar B'Yochanan. Bar Abba said name of Yochanan. Minayin l'shinei begadim min haTorah. How do we know that there's a concept of changing your clothing from the Torah in order to show honor to the task that you're doing? How do you know that has any relevance? It talks about the truma, the hotzas hadeshen, when you take out the ashes that were on the mizbeach. So you're supposed to change your clothing. So basically, this is like taking out the, I don't want to say garbage because it's actually a mitzvah to take it out, but you're taking out the dirty ashes. So therefore, you'll change your clothing so you don't wear the same clothing that you wear when you do the regular service as you do when you're taking out the ashes. But Tana Devei Yishmael is taught in Yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael. Limedcha Torah derech eretz. The Torah is teaching us derech eretz, proper conduct through this. Begadim shabishal behen keder l'rabbi, al yimzag behen kaiser rabbi. The same clothing that you cook a pot for your master, you don't pour the cup for your master. There's the kitchen clothing, and then there's the serving clothing. So we see this concept in the Torah that you change your clothing. So once we know that, now we know also there's a mitzvah to wear special clothing for Shabbos. It's a disgrace for a Torah scholar to go out with patched shoes into the marketplace, because he represents the Torah and Judaism and Hashem, and therefore he has to look respectful. But we know the Baruch Bar he did go out wearing patched shoes. Others have a different version, where they say Abba himself, who made this statement, would go out with patched shoes. The disgrace is if you have a patch on top of a patch, like a double patch. That's a disgrace. It's like they got ripped and you didn't fix them, then they got ripped again. As opposed to just a single rip and a single patch is not considered disgrace. I guess that's normal that you get a rip and you have to patch it up. But it's a double patch that's disgraceful. Any Torah scholar that a grease stain is found on his garment is liable to death. That he's basically a disgrace, that he represents Hashem and he's walking out as a disgrace with this grease stain. Now, I mean, I have heard some say that, people occasionally get, if you're eating, you might get a little stain. It's hard to imagine, and then you're just like, you're running off, and it's hard to imagine you're liable to death. They say grease stain was like a real disgusting type of stain. So I don't know exactly what qualifies for that. Namras written, Kol mesanai ahavu mavis. All those who hate me, the Torah, love death. What does that mean? Al tikre mesanai. Don't read it as mesanai, those who hate me. Ela masniai, those who cause others to hate me. Which means a Torah scholar that walks around with like disgusting clothing or soiled clothing, it causes people to denigrate the Torah, and therefore it's saying that he's deserving of loving death, which means a thing that can atone from his death is deserving of death. Ravina said Ravad Itmar. It wasn't said regarding a Ravav, which is a grease stain, but rather a Ravad is a stain of semen on him. He said that's what it is that's considered really disgusting, and that's when the statement was. V'lai pligi, the two versions are not arguing. Ha-beglima ha-belavusha. Rabbi Yochanan was talking about your cloak and upper garment. Upper garment is visible to everybody. So a semen stain is more disgusting than a grease stain. For the upper garment, even a grease stain, any type of stain is considered disgusting. On the inner garment, like a shirt, ha-belavusha, talking about the shirt, which is like a lower garment, is not as visible. So there, a grease stain is not as visible, but a semen stain people would still notice. So that's the two versions. V'amar b'chia bar Abba, Amar b'Yochanan, Ma'adiksiv, which is written in a pasuk in Yeshaya. Ka'asher holach avdi Yeshayahu aroim v'yachev. Just like my servant Yeshaya has gone naked and barefoot. So the pasuk says, that Hashem says, as my servant Yeshaya has gone naked and barefoot for 3 years as a sign and symbol for Egypt and Cush, so shall the king of Assyria lead the captivity of Egypt and the exile of Cush naked and barefoot. So what does that mean? The Navi Yeshaya walked around naked and barefoot? It's hard to take that at face value. So Araim bivigidaim biluim, Naked means he had worn out garments. It doesn't mean he was walking around literally naked. It means he's wearing worn out garments. And barefoot means with patched shoes. Now, even though we just said that a Torah scholar is not allowed to, this was specially that Hashem's told him that he had to do it, and therefore he did it. But we're seeing the same concept that wearing worn out garments is considered like walking around naked, and patched shoes like walking around barefoot. Others have a different way of understanding this. They don't see Yeshaya actually walked around like this, but rather he had a prophecy where he saw in the prophecy that he would walk around like this. So again, there's different opinions as to whether it actually happened or this was just the prophecy that he saw. We're in 114a2. Tanan Hasmulent, a Mishnah over there. This is a Mishnah in mikvahs, and we know when you toivel in the mikvah, you're not allowed to have a chatzitza, anything that interposes between you and the mikvah. We've learned on a biblical level, it's only considered an interposition if it covers the majority of your body and you're particular, like you don't want it to be there. On a rabbinic level, even if it covers the minority of your body, but you're particular about it, or if it covers the majority of your body, but you're not particular about it, that also is a chatzitza. The one thing that's not a chatzitza, not interposition, if it's only covering the minority of your body and you actually don't care about it, which means you don't mind leaving it there. However, we are stringent. Certain times we go to the mikvah, we do make sure there's nothing on our bodies, that they're totally clean. However, so if you have a small thing on your body, it depends if you're particular about it. If you couldn't care less about it being there, then it's not an interposition. But if you're makbid on it, if you're particular about it, you don't want it there, then it does interpose between you or between what you're toiveling and the waters of the mikvah. This is very relevant, for example, if you have to dip dishes in the mikvah, you want to make sure that the labels on them are taken off so that doesn't interpose. If something is, let's say, on the bottom of the vessel, and then you dipped it in the mikvah, and then you come back and you're like, the label's still on it. So it may actually depend whether it's a type of label that people care about or not. Something that anyways, you're fine keeping it on there for years. Maybe that doesn't interpose. If it's something that people would generally take off because it bothers them, either because you're cooking with it so you don't want to have paper on it, or just it bothers you, so then that would interpose and you would have to dip it in again. So Tanan Hasim, we learned in a Mishnah in Mikvahs, Revav al Hamardea Chaytzeitz, grease on a saddle cloth of a donkey intervenes. So let's say the saddle cloth is tummy, so you have to dip it into the mikvah. If you have a grease stain on it, that is something that people don't like on it, therefore that does intervene. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, Ad ke iser ha'italki, only if the grease patch is at least the size of an Italian iser, which is, they say that this is around 4.1 square centimeters, just conjectural. They don't know exactly how much, which is around 3/4 of a square inch. So according to Shimon Gamliel, it depends on the size. Adke Isser Hitalki, only if it's the size of this Italian Isser does it interpose, because that's when people care about it. Vial Habegadim, so that was on a saddle cloth. Let's say it's on clothing. Mitzad Echad Ein Chotzitz. If it's only on one side of the clothing, that's not such a big deal. That does not interpose. Mishnei Tzedadin Chotzitz. However, if it goes through to both sides, so it's a real amount of grease that penetrates to the reverse side, that's really soiled, that does interpose. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda saying Mishmal, Af Mitzad Echad Chaytzis. No, even on one side it intervenes. Okay, so an interesting machlokas over here. What type of grease stain are people particular about that they care about? And if you care about it, that would then interpose that you need to get it out before you could stick it into the mikvah. Ellen, you see where we are? You see where we are? Good. Kuf Yudalad Amud Aleph. We're literally halfway down. The first word on the line is Echad Chotzeitz. It's halfway down Kuf Yudalad Amud Aleph. We're up to Ba'imene. See it? Got it? Ba'imene Reb Shimon Lakish. You see it? Yeah, Reb Shimon Lakish. Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's just talk after. Okay, so Ba'imene Shimon Lakish Mer Chanina. Shimon ben Lakish, Resh Lakish asked Reb Chanina, Mardas mitzad acharim shnei tzaddim. So we said regarding the clothing, the machlokas, amazing. With machlokes, if it's just one side or two sides that interposes. How about by the saddlecloth? According to Rabbi Shmuel, the saddlecloth has to penetrate to both sides to be considered a chatzitza, or even one side. Amrla, he said, Zu loy shamati. Good question. I never heard this answer. However, kayotze by shamati, but I do have a similar case that I heard. So maybe we can try to learn from that case. Shamat is a shmata. Alan's pointing out the word shmata is like the word shemati. But here we're the word shamati, which is like shema, which means to listen. So shamati means I heard. Okay? So zu loy shamati, this I didn't hear. Kayotze by shamati, but I did hear a similar case. The Tanan, as we learned in the next section of that Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi says, Shal banoin mitzad echad, on garments of banoin, a stain intervenes even if it's on one side. We don't know what the word banoin means yet. We'll have to see. Vishal bor mishnei tzaddim. If it's on a bor, so then it intervenes only if it's on both sides. V'loi tehei mardas chashuva mibigdai shel amaretz. Now a bor is like an ignorant person, and a saddlecloth it doesn't rank higher than a garment of an ignorant person. So if regarding an ignorant person, only a two-sided stain intervenes. It goes without saying that regarding a saddlecloth, for sure, only if it goes through and through, would it intervene. My banoin. So what is this banoin? Who we said that the stain is even on one side, it intervenes. Rabbi Yochanan said, Elu Talmidei Chacham. This is actually referring to Torah scholars. Who are occupied with the building of the world all their days. So we know the pasuk says, if not for my covenant day and night, I would not have appointed the laws of heaven and earth, which means when you study Torah, you're keeping the world going. So anybody who studies Torah is building the world. So banayin has to do with the word binyan, which is building, which is referring to Torah scholars who build the world. So we've already seen they shouldn't be having stains on their clothing. So therefore, for somebody who builds a world, for a Torah scholar, that's when a stain, even on one side of the clothing, they are particular about, and that would intervene. Okay? So this is the connection we had to before, the same concept that we see that a Torah scholar should not have a stain on his clothing. However, the other case was a bor, an ignorant person is not as particular, and therefore it's only chatzitz if it goes through and through to both sides. And then for sure, the case of the saddlecloth would only intervene if it goes through and through. Rabbi Yochanan says, so the basic concept for hashavas aveda, there's a biblical mitzvah to return a lost object to a Jewish person. Usually you have to give a sign. He has to have either witnesses or some identifying feature to prove that it's his. Otherwise, you don't give it back. There's a leniency that if a Torah scholar can identify it and says, yes, I know for sure that's mine, we give it back even if he can't prove it. What type of Torah scholar is it that has a special dispensation that without witnesses, without a proof, if he says, I recognize it, we give it back to him? So how do you qualify to be that type of Torah scholar? Rabbi Yochanan said, who's considered a Torah scholar that gets back this lost object based on just visual recognition without proving it? Somebody's particular about his tunic to turn it around, which means a Torah scholar was very particular to look good. Just you have to look respectful. So if you put on your shirt by accident backwards, the Torah scholar would make sure to put it right so he doesn't again disgrace the Torah. Rabbi Yochanan, we're now in 114a3. Rabbi Yochanan said, who qualifies as a Torah scholar that can be appointed a leader over the community? Somebody who can ask him a halachic matter, a Jewish law matter, in any topic, and he can respond. Even in Tractate Kala. Tractate Kala was a tractate of Brisas. It begins with Kala b'loi bracha asur b'lo bala knida, a bride without a blessing is forbidden to her husband like a nida, but it's a compilation of Brisas, which people would generally get to after they finished all the other Gemaras. So basically it means he's an expert in Gemaras, in Halacha. Okay, that's a person who qualifies to be appointed as a leader over the community. Rabbi Yochanan said, who's a Torah scholar whose work is a duty of the townspeople to perform, which means that there's an obligation on the city to support its resident Torah scholars And it's actually very interesting. It's learned out from the building of the Aron, the building of the Ark, where the Gemara in Yuma poses a contradiction. On the one hand, Hashem told Moshe, make a wooden Aron for yourself. And then it says, they shall make an Aron. So who was supposed to build this Aron? Was it Moshe or was it the people? So basically, the Gemara in Yuma learns out it was Moshe's obligation to do it, but it was the people's duty and responsibility to take care of Moshe's work for him. So when you have a Torah scholar, there's a concept that that's a responsibility of the people of the city to support and take care of the needs of the Torah scholar. I assume it's similar to the concept of a kollel. So there's a responsibility to take, or I don't know exactly like that, but there's a concept that the people of the city should take care of should take on the responsibilities of the Torah scholar so they can be dedicated for their Torah learning. So who qualifies for that? Somebody who abandons his own matters and deals only with heavenly matters. So somebody who his focus is on heavenly matters, it would be the responsibility of the people to help support this person in the process.
So the people would have to build an Aron?
Yeah. Well, that's what happened by Moshe. Moshe was supposed to build the Aron, but the people did it instead because Moshe was dedicated for his Torah.
How did they know how to build it? I mean,
I guess Moshe showed them. They hired Ashley's Construction to take over.
How would I know how to build it?
You would ask Moshe. You could ask Moshe. He was there. Just the point was, they took
the people built both of them.
The manual labor. Which both of them? Well, this was by the Mishkan. The manual labor involved in building the Aron, the people did it instead of Moshe doing it. The Ark. There's 3 boxes.
They carried the Torah.
Yes.
The original Torah.
Right.
There were 2 of them, right?
By
the David used.
No, I'm talking about in the Mishkan. Moshe wasn't around in the times of David. This was by the tabernacle, by the Mishkan.
Okay, so it wasn't the Ark itself. It was the whole tabernacle.
No, they built the Ark. We're talking about the Ark here. Building of the Ark, which was 3 boxes put inside each other. Moshe was supposed to build it, but the people did it instead. How did they know? I guess they asked Moshe.
I know that Moshe built the tabernacle in the desert. He traveled with it.
Well, that's what we're showing. It was his. Well, Bezalel also did a lot of it, but the point was that Moshe was supposed to build it, but the people did the actual manual labor instead of Moshe. All right.
When we learned about it, we learned that it was like a miracle. Because the units were so big and heavy that nobody, one person.
Okay, but there was the construction of the Mishkan, and the point is that people helped out with that. The Bezalel did, and others helped out with the construction of the Mishkan. Yes, there were miracles as well involved in it.
He built it by himself.
Who built it?
Moshe.
Right, but we see the people did the manual labor involved in it.
Ali, where are you up to?
Kuf Yud Dalet Amud Aleph.
Yes.
It's like by the widest lines. Right by the widest lines, where the lines get the widest.
Okay.
So Vahani Mili Lemitrach Biriftei. So this responsibility that we have, that it's the communal's responsibility to support and take care of the needs of the Torah scholars, is only though to provide for his bread and for his basic sustenance. Rashi says, and others say, but not luxuries. So you can't have a Torah scholar who says, I need to drive a Lexus because I got because it's a great car. I guess you all have to take care of me because I'm studying Torah all day. No, you have to take care of his basic necessities, but not for his luxuries. Okay? The Amr of Yochanan said, Ezo Talmid Chacham, who is considered a Torah scholar? Kol sheshona halacha b'chol makom v'imram. Anybody who can ask him a halachic matter in any place and he can tell it to you. L'may nafkamina, what's the practical relevance? What's the difference whether he qualifies or not? L'manuye parnas al tzibur, to appoint him as a leader over the community. Now, if he can only respond in the one tractate that he's currently studying, so then he can be appointed a leader in his own location. But if he can answer any questions in all the Talmud, so then you can make him actually the head of a yeshiva. The commentaries discuss how this works in tandem with the other statement of Rabbi Yochanan, that who is a Torah scholar could be appointed a communal leader, somebody can ask them a halachic matter anywhere. Rish Shimon ben Lakish Rish Lakish said, so now going back to the word banoin, remember we said that the Mishnah in Mikvah said, that Rabbi Yossi says, on a garment of banoin, even an interposition, just a grease on one side interposes. We said that's referring to Torah scholars who build the world. Now, Rish Lakish has another explanation for that word. Rish Shimon Lakish Amar Elu Kelim Ha'ulyurin Ha'bain Mimedina Siyam. These are garments of the bathhouse attendants that are made from fine materials that come from abroad. Since they're very fancy materials, even a stain on one side. So according to this, the word banoin, according to the first explanation, banoin comes to the word binyan, which is building, which is Torah scholars build the world. According to this, banoin has to do with the word beibane, which is a bathhouse. So two different ways to understand it. But point is, it's somebody or materials that you're very sensitive about, and therefore even one side interposes. So you're telling, so this seems to imply that the garments of the bathhouse attendants are white. Because we're saying now, according to Rish Lakish, the bathhouse attendants are so particular not to have a stain on them. The only particular, it's only most glaring if it's white. Is that true that the bathhouse attendant's clothing was white? Rabbi Yani told his children, Bana, my sons, don't bury me in white shrouds, and don't bury me in black shrouds. Levanim, don't bury me in white shrouds. If I don't merit to go to Gan Eden, but rather I'm going to be amongst the mourners in Gehenna, they're all going to be wearing black, and I'm going to be wearing white. I'm going to look like a bride amongst the mourners. I'll be sticking out. Shechayrim, and I don't want to be wearing black. Shema Ezke, because I might merit to sit amongst the righteous in Gan Eden. And I will look like a mourner wearing black amongst all the grooms wearing white. Rather bury me in the garments of bathhouse attendants that come from abroad. Not white, not black. What are you left with? Color, right? So we see that the bathhouse attendants' garments are colored. Either means they're red or they're colored. I thought we just said that the bathhouse attendants' clothing is white. Lokash is not a question. Rabbi Yana is referring to cloaks. The cloaks of the bathhouse attendants were colored. Rishon is referring to the other garments which were white. So basically, the outer garments were made from dyed material, and the other garments, the cloaks, which were the outer garments, were made from colored materials, and the other garments were made from white. Lots of interesting things about this Gemara. We see this concept that a groom dresses white and a mourner dresses black. That's what it seems like from this Gemara. We see Rabbi Yane wanted to dress in colored. Big discussions about this Gemara. What does he mean? At the end of the day, it's his soul that goes to Gan Eden or Gehenna, not his body. Seemingly, your clothing stays in the grave. It doesn't go up with you. So what was he saying? Why does he care what colored garments he's wearing? So they talk about this. Some say there's still some connection to your body even when you die, and then you can still see what you're buried in. Others say he's talking about by the resurrection of the dead, where it says you'll be resurrected together with your clothing, and that's where it is. Lots of interesting discussions about these Gemaras. The bottom line practice is, even though Rabbi Yana said he wanted to be buried in colored clothing, the accepted practice is we wear white burial shrouds, and that's based on other Gemaras where we did not want to embarrass the poor people. The poor people couldn't afford fancy burial shrouds. So what happened was the poor people stopped burying their dead relatives because they couldn't afford to do a nice burial. And therefore, there were some rabbis that said, bury me in simple white shrouds, and that became the simple bottom line practices of simple white shrouds. Okay. Continue onward. We're on 114a4, 4/5 of the way down. Rabbi Shmuel Omer Mekaplan B'chulum. Rabbi Shmuel says you're allowed to fold garments, and also we talk about fat of Shabbos sacrifices may be offered on Yom Kippur. And Rabbi Kiva says not Shabbos sacrifices can be offered on Yom Kippur, and you cannot offer Yom Kippur sacrifice remnants on Shabbos. Okay, so it comes out according to Rabbi Shmuel, Shabbos has a higher sanctity than Yom Kippur. So therefore, the remnants of fats from Yom Kippur services cannot be offered on Shabbos because that would be disrespectful for Shabbos. But Shabbos offerings, remnants can be offered on Yom Kippur. Rabbi Akiva holds that they're more parallel, and therefore you cannot at all branch from one to the other. The Tanah Baron Brisa, Oila Shabbos b'Shabbato, the Oila offering of each Shabbos on its own Shabbos. So what is this teaching us? Limeid al Chelve Shabbos Shekreven b'Yom HaKippurim teaches us the fats of Shabbos offerings may be offered on Yom Kippur. Now, the basic concept here is there's one pasuk that seems to have been exclusionary and one pasuk seems to be inclusionary when it talks about the offerings. Because it says the Ola offering of each Shabbos on its own Shabbos. But it already told us that we know that you bring each offering on its own day, which seems to be we're including an exclusion through this. And because on the one hand it says, I'm sorry, one second, the redundancy of the pasuk, which means first it says that you bring every Shabbos offering in Shabbos. And then it says the Ola offering of each Shabbos on its own Shabbos. And it also, the word B'Shabbato in its own Shabbos. So there's a redundancy which seems to include, and then there's B'Shabbato, which is exclusionary. So there's something to include and something to exclude from this pasuk. And that's the introduction of what this machlokus is going to be about. So like this. Tanah Baron Brisa, Ola Shabbos B'Shabbato, the Ola offering of each Shabbos on its own Shabbos. Limeid al Chelve Shabbos Shekreven b'Yom Kippurim teaches us the fats of Shabbos may be offered on Yom Kippur. So it means, again, if you have Shabbos that runs into Yom Kippur is on a Sunday. So the fats of Shabbos you're allowed to bring on Yom Kippur because, again, Shabbos has a more elevated sanctity than Yom Kippur, and therefore it's not a disgrace to Yom Kippur to burn leftover fats of Shabbos on it. I might think the opposite as well, that if Yom Kippur fell on a Friday, you can burn the leftover fats from Yom Kippur on Shabbos. It says in it Shabbos, which teaches us, so again, one inclusionary, one exclusionary, which teaches us Shabbos fats may be burnt on Yom Kippur, but Yom Kippur fats may not be burnt on Shabbos. These are words of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva says, Ola Shabbos b'Shabbato. Paz says that Ola offering each Shabbos on its own Shabbos. Limeid al Chelve Shabbos Shekreven b'Yom Tiv. He says this is not coming to teach us for Shabbos and Yom Kippur, but rather come to teach us that Shabbos fats may be burnt on Yom Tiv. So if a Shabbos runs into Yom Tiv, the leftover Shabbos fats can be burnt on Yom Tiv. Yachal af b'Yom Kippurim. I might think also to include that Shabbos fats can be burnt on Yom Kippur. Tamalim b'Shabbatos is in Shabbos, which is exclusionary. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, the inclusionary word teaches us that you can go from Shabbos fats burnt on Yom Kippur, and according to Akiva, the inclusionary word only teaches us that you can do fats on Yom Tiv, but not on Yom Kippur. Now, what is this machlokus about?
Machlokus not about on Shabbos.
What?
You mean not on Shabbos? You said on Yom Kippur.
Question is the leftover Shabbos fats from offerings that you brought on Shabbos. According to Rabbi Shmuel, if you are allowed to burn them on Yom Kippur, which is the following day, if Yom Kippur is on a Sunday.
Okay.
According to Rabbi Kiva, you're not allowed to burn them on Yom Kippur if that follows a Shabbos. But if a Yom Tiv falls out after Shabbos, let's say Pesach or Sukkot or something falls out on a Sunday, then you would be allowed to burn the leftover Shabbos fats on Yom Tiv.
I see, okay.
So what's this machlokus? Why is it that according to Rabbi Kiva, the pasuk is only to include that you can burn Shabbos fats on Yom Tiv, and according to Rabbi Shmuel, it's coming to include you can burn Shabbos fats on Yom Kippur. What's this machlokus about? Kishatim tzolaimer. When you analyze this, you'll find l'divrei Rabbi Shmuel, according to the words of Rabbi Shmuel, the Dharma and Davas Kreven b'Yom Tiv. Vowed offerings and donated offerings may be offered on Yom Tiv. So Rabbi Shmuel holds, this is a big machlokus. Can you bring, we know that the mandatory communal offerings you're allowed to bring on Yom Tiv, but how about if you donate an offering and say, I'm going to bring this cow as a ola to the Beis HaMikdash. Are you allowed to bring that as a donated offering? Are you allowed to sacrifice it on Yom Tiv? Rabbi Shmuel says you are allowed to. If you are allowed to, then reason would say you definitely could burn the leftover fats of Shabbos onto Yom Tiv. I don't need a pasuk for that. So what's the pasuk coming to include? Coming to include even Shabbos fats on Yom Kippur. But according to Akiva, where you cannot bring donated offerings on Yom Tiv, therefore I would not know on my own that Shabbos fats can be burnt on Yom Tiv. Therefore I need the pasuk to teach me that Shabbos fats can be burnt on Yom Tiv. If so, I have no source that Shabbos fats can be burnt on Yom Kippur. So again, Kishatim Tzoloimer. When you analyze this, you'll conclude, L'divrei Rabbi Shmuel, according to words of Rabbi Shmuel, Nidar and Davas Krev Yom Tiv. Vowed offerings and donated offerings may be offered on Yom Tiv. Therefore, I would know on my own, again, that Shabbos fast can be brought on Yom Tov. So the whole novelty of the inclusionary word of the pasuk is coming to include it that even Shabbos fast can be burnt on Yom Kippur that falls out after Shabbos. But Div Rabbi Kiva, according to words of Rabbi Kiva, Nedarim and Nedavos ein krev miyom tov. Vow offerings and donated offerings may not be offered on Yom Tov. Therefore, I might think that you cannot bring Shabbos leftovers on Yom Tov as well. Therefore, I need the pasuk to teach me that you're allowed to burn Shabbos fast on Yom Tov. If so, I have no source that Shabbos fast can be burnt on Yom Kippur. Hence, the machlokus in our Mishnah that according to Rabbi Shmuel, Shabbos fast can be burnt on Yom Kippur. According to Rabbi Kiva, they cannot be. Yes, Gary.
Well, it seems without question, the leftover from Shabbos is much holier than what the is for the next day. So you would be able to use the holier for the lesser, but you couldn't do it in reverse.
Gary's pointing out that logic would indicate that you should be allowed to burn Shabbos fast after Shabbos because Shabbos is more holy.
Right.
But that depends what day is after Shabbos. If the day after Shabbos is Yom Tov, then for sure yes, because Yom Tov is more lenient. If the day that follows Shabbos is Yom Kippur, that's a discussion how you view the sanctity of Yom Kippur, if that's parallel to Shabbos or if it's less than Shabbos. According to Akiva, it's parallel, and we have no source that teaches us that you could do it, and therefore he says you cannot burn Shabbos fast on Yom Kippur.
Ali, where are you up to?
We're about to turn the page. We're in the last three words of Kufi Daled Aleph.
I'm Reb Zer.
Yeah, Amr Reb Zer. Reb Zer said, Kiavina bevavel. Now we're in 114b1, Kufi Daled Beis. Kiavina bevavel, Havi Army. When I was in Bavel learning Torah there, I used to say, Had Tanya, that which we learned in a Brisa, Yom HaKippurim Shecholias Erev Shabbos. If Yom Kippur fell on a Friday. Now again, nowadays, Yom Kippur does not fall out on a Friday or a Sunday. Barry reminded me of the rule of Lo Adu Rosh. We know that Rosh Hashanah does not fall out on a Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday. And based on that, you can figure out which days Yom Kippur can fall on. But in those days, when Rosh Chodesh was based on the testimony of witnesses, it basically could fall out on any day. So again, now we know a concept. We've seen this on Daf Lamed Hey. So this was on Daf 35. We had, going back a few months, this concept that there were certain shofar blasts that they would blow on Friday to tell people to come in from the fields and to stop doing work and to get ready for Shabbos. And the question is, if Yom Kippur falls on a Friday, do you do these shofar blasts in order to get the people ready for Shabbos? Now, a shofar blast is rabbinically forbidden, unless there's a mitzvah to do it. For example, on Rosh Hashanah, we blow shofar because there's a mitzvah. But just to start blowing a shofar on Shabbos is muktzah, it's rabbinically forbidden, right? So the question is, would the rabbis tell us to do shofar blasts or not? So, Kiavina bevavel haviyami. When I was in Bavel, we used to say, Had Tanya, that which we learned in a Brisa. So, Yom Kippurim Shecholias Erev Shabbos. If Yom Kippur fell on Erev Shabbos on a Friday, Lo Hayu Taiken, they would not sound the shofar. Uva Mati Shabbos. If Yom Kippur fell on a Mati Shabbos, which means on a Sunday, Lo Hayu Mavdilin, they would not recite Havdalah. Now, we know we make Havdalah. When you go from a higher sanctity to a lower sanctity, you recite Havdalah. So, for example, Matzah Shabbos, when you go to a weekday, you recite Havdalah. And from Shabbos to Yom Tov, which is going down in a lower sanctity, you recite Havdalah. Shabbos to Yom Kippur is going to be the discussion. If that's considered a parallel sanctity, and then you don't recite Havdalah, or it's considered a lesser sanctity, and then you would.
Rabbi Akiva would say that equal.
Gary points out very astutely that if Rabbi Kiva holds that Shabbos and Yom Kippur are equal, seemingly you should not make Havdalah. Excellent point, Gary. Let's see. So that which the Brisa says, Yom Kippur that fell on a Friday, you don't blow the shofar. And if it fell out on Sunday, Lo Yom Havdalah, you don't recite Havdalah. Divrei Kolhi. I used to say everybody would agree to that, both Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. Kisalikna lahasam. However, when I went up there to Eretz Yisrael, I encountered Yehuda son of Shimon Pazi was sitting and saying, Rabbi Kiva. No, it's like Gary said. This is Rabbi Kiva's opinion who considers Yom Kippur on a parallel sanctity than Shabbos. Di'i Rabbi Yishmael, however, according to Yishmael, Kivan Damar Chalva Shabbos Kiv Yom Kippur, Yishmael says the leftover fast from Shabbos are allowed to be burnt in Yom Kippur. That means Yom Kippur has a lower sanctity than Shabbos. Litkam, then we should blow shofar. We should blow shofar to make a distinction so people will realize that Yom Kippur is a lower sanctity than Shabbos, in order that people will know that you're allowed to burn Shabbos fats on Yom Kippur. Now it's interesting. We would actually be blowing the shofar when Yom Kippur is on a Friday to tell us Shabbos is coming. That would indicate that Shabbos is a greater sanctity. Now, for that year, it's actually not relevant because that year you're not burning Yom Kippur fats on Shabbos fats on Yom Kippur. But then at least you'll know that Shabbos is the greatest sanctity of Yom Kippur. And then in the future years, Yom Kippur falls on a Sunday, you'll know you can burn the fats. Okay, so that's what when it went up to Eretz Yisrael, that's what I heard Yehuda son of Shimon Pazi sitting and saying. And I said back to him, no, there's no need, even according to Shmuel, you don't need to blow the shofar. Kohanim's reason, Hannah, since we know that the Kohanim are conscientious about their responsibilities, and this whole halacha, whether you're allowed to burn Shabbos fast Yom Kippur, is only relevant for the Kohanim doing the service in Beis HaMikdash. Therefore, no, even Rabbi Shmuel may agree that you don't need to blow the shofar to signify that because the Kohanim know it. And there's an interesting question. Do Kohanim need reminders to know what day is more sanctified? Or do we say they're conscientious and they know their stuff and they don't need reminders? This is the question now. Amar le Mar Kashisha, Bereda of Chizravashi. Mar Kashisha, the son of Chizra, said to Ravashi. Kohanim's reason, really? Do we say that Kohanim are so conscientious and they don't need reminders? V'hatanan, we learned in the Mishnah. Now, we know there are 21 shofar blasts that were blown every day in the Beis HaMikdash. We learned this in Sukkah. And then on Friday, there was another 6 blasts, right? So tonight we learned the Mishnah in Sukkah. Shalosh lahavtos ami malachim. 3 of the added shofar blasts on Friday were to tell people it's time to stop working. Shalosh lahavtos ben koshachol, and 3 to distinguish between the sacred and the secular, which means to let us know that it's that we're about to have a line of distinction between the weekday and Shabbos. Now, where did they sound these shofar blasts? In the Beis HaMikdash. Now, who is in the Beis HaMikdash? The Kohanim. So it sounds like the goal of the shofar blast was to tell the Kohanim it's about to be Shabbos. They're blowing it in the Beis HaMikdash. So if so, why are you saying that we don't need to blow shofar blasts because Kohanim are conscientious? It sounds like they do need reminders as well. The Gemara says, no, Amar Abai, like Abai said regarding a different topic, Lishar Amma Dibur Shalayim. The benefit was the rest of people in Yerushalayim, not for the Kohanim. So too, even though, yes, they blew the blast in the Beis HaMikdash, but the Kohanim would have known on their own. Could be they were conscientious. The goal was for the rest of the people to hear the blast and to know it's time to desist from working and it's time for Shabbos. One second. Now, so Abaye's statement was regarding a whole different halacha. Basically, the Mishnah Yuma says that Queen Helene placed a golden candelabrum over the entrance of the Beis HaMikdash, and when the sun rose, the rays struck the golden candelabrum, and they knew it was time to say the morning Shema. Now the problem is, we know the Kohanim would actually say the Shema before sunrise, because they needed to have enough time to do the sacrificial service. So if so, what does it mean that they will look at sunrise by the rays being reflected on a candelabrum? It's not true. The Kohanim would say Shema before sunrise. So Abaye says, even though it was located in the Beis HaMikdash, the function was to serve notice to other people outside Beis HaMikdash when it was sunrise. So we have a concept, something in the Beis HaMikdash was used for people outside Beis HaMikdash. So that rule we can apply here as well, that even though they blew the shofar blast, the shofar blast in the Beis HaMikdash, but the goal was for the people outside Beis HaMikdash. Yes, Gary.
We know that they do things in the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos that we can't do today, like do sacrifices. But why would it not be possible to blow shofar on Shabbos in the Beis HaMikdash using that same song?
Gary's pointing out that in the Beis HaMikdash, we know there are many things they did in the Beis HaMikdash that we don't do outside of Beis HaMikdash. For example, bringing sacrifices. So why is it a problem to blow shofar blasts? I think that's your question. And it's interesting. It's actually interesting because we do have a concept of ein shvus b'mikdash, that and there are leniencies regarding rabbinic prohibitions in the base of mikdash, but there are other times that we don't do it. It depends on the situation. So we do shofar blast when we need it, and we don't do the shofar blast when we don't need to do it. That's the basic rule. Okay. So the Bryce has said that we did not blow shofar for Yom Kippur that fell out on a Friday, either because Yom Kippur and Shabbos have the same sanctity, and according to Rabbi Shmuel, could be even Rabbi Shmuel would agree you don't, even though Shabbos has a greater sanctity than Yom Kippur, but it was only relevant for the Kohanim, and they were conscientious. There's another practical difference between Yom Kippur and Shabbos. There's another special leniency by Yom Kippur that you're allowed to trim vegetables on Yom Kippur once you hit mincha time, which the Mishnah Berurah says is 9.5 hours. We know there's 12 hours today, not necessarily 60-minute hours, but if you divide up shows manios, either from sunrise to sunset or from dawn till nightfall, divide that by 12, you'll get to the hours. So 9.5 hours in today is the mincha time. So there's a special leniency on Yom Kippur. You're allowed to cut away the outer spoiled leaves from stalks of vegetables that have already been harvested, so they're easier to be cut or chopped. Now, this is not we're not getting into all the details here. Basically, it's not a biblical issue because it's already harvested, but rabbinically it would be forbidden. On Yom Kippur, as you're getting close to dark, there's a leniency that you're allowed to cut away these outer spoiled leaves from the stalks. They talk about this by the halachas of selection and the halachas of tirach of troubling. It was a special Yom Kippur leniency for two possible reasons. It has to do with causing pain. Either, and we'll see, there's two explanations though. Either it means we know there's a mitzvah to cause yourself pain on Yom Kippur because it says you're supposed to fast in order to afflict yourself. If people knew that they cannot get their vegetables ready until nightfall, which means even when the fast ends, they still have to spend another half an hour getting the vegetables ready for the meal. So that would cause them, so like this. So there's two ways to understand this. If we tell them they could trim the vegetables as it's getting dark, some say the goal is to increase the pain because if you're trimming vegetables, but you can't actually eat them, that makes it harder for you to fast, which some say that was better because we want to afflict you. If you want to cause yourself more affliction by making more pain from hunger, you can do that. Others say the opposite, that we don't want to cause you extra pain knowing that you're going to have to wait a half an hour. So anyways, because of pain, there's rabbinic leniency that you're allowed to trim the vegetables 9.5 hours towards the end of Yom Kippur. Again, talk to a rabbi before actually applying this. It's not simple how exactly you would apply this. But basically, if we have a leniency for Yom Kippur than Shabbos, we should blow shofar to signify when you're going from Yom Kippur to Shabbos, you'll know that there's a difference of halachas there. So again, we're in 114b2. Veliska, you should blow shofar. So people know that Yom Kippur is more lenient than Shabbos, that you're allowed to trim vegetables from Mincha onward. Now, this would be interesting. The goal of this blowing shofar would be to tell you a leniency, not a stringency, which would be a question. Do the rabbis allow you to blow shofar just as a stringency or even as a leniency? So Amar Rav Yosef said, "Lafish ein dochen shavus lahater." You don't do this because we don't override our rabbinical prohibition in order to tell you permissibility. Everybody knew Shabbos you're not allowed to do it. The question is you should blow shofar so people realize that Yom Kippur is more lenient. Rav Yosef says we only blow shofar to tell you stringencies, not to tell you leniencies. Rav Shisha Rav Shisha son of Idi said Shavus Kroiva Hitirum. They only permitted a rabbinical prohibition for that will help people for an immediate permissibility, Shavus Rechoika Hitiru, but not for a distant permissibility. So like this, when would you be blowing the shofar? You would be blowing shofar. Well, if Yom Kippur fell on a Friday, the question is, should we blow shofar Friday afternoon to let people know that Shabbos is coming? So you'll know that Yom Kippur has a lower sanctity than Shabbos, so you'll know that you're allowed to trim vegetables. Now, it's not relevant for this year, because why are you trimming the vegetables? So you can really cook them or get them ready that night. But that night anyways, you're not allowed to cook them and get them ready because it's Shabbos. So for this year, it's not relevant. So what would be the relevance? You should blow a shofar this year to let you know Shabbos is coming, to let you know that Yom Kippur has a lower sanctity. So you know for a future year, when Yom Kippur is not on Friday, you're allowed to trim the vegetables from 9.5 hours onward. So it means you're blowing shofar this year, so you'll know for next year. Rav Shisha says that's not a reason. You don't blow shofar for a distant benefit. It's only for the benefit is now. Right, Gary's pointing out that every Friday afternoon they blew shofar, but not when it's Yom Kippur though, because the whole point was to tell people to stop working. But anyways, you can't work on Yom Kippur, so you wouldn't have to blow shofar on Yom Kippur. Okay, Frak Gemara. So like this. So we have two explanations why you don't blow shofar to tell people regarding the trimming of the vegetables. So Rav Yosef says you only blow shofar for stringencies, not for leniencies. Rav Shisha says you only blow shofar for now immediate knowledge, not for future knowledge. Which implies, according to the second explanation, for immediate knowledge, even to be lenient, Rav Shisha would hold, you would blow shofar. Does that mean they would allow rabbinic prohibitions pushed aside for immediate permissibility? We learned in a Mishnah in Chulin, Yom Tov Shecholios Erev Shabbos. Let's say Yom Tov falls out on a Friday, Erev Shabbos. Would we blow shofar that afternoon? Yes, we would, because on Yom Tov, there are many things you're allowed to do, especially relating to cooking and carrying that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. So we have to blow shofar Yom Tov afternoon to tell people Shabbos is coming, right? Do you do Havdalah from Yom Tov to Shabbos? Havdalah means over a cup. Gil says no, because Havdalah is only when you go from a greater sanctity to a lesser sanctity, not from a lower, right? So from Yom Tov to Shabbos, we do not do Havdalah. So we would blow shofar, so people will know to refrain from cooking. It's about to be Shabbos, but we don't say Havdalah, right? So Yom Tov Shecholios Erev Shabbos, Yom Tov that falls out on a Shabbos afternoon, Friday. Taikin, we blow shofar. V'loy Mavdilim, we don't do Havdalah. Matzi Shabbos. Let's say Yom Tov falls out on a Sunday. Would we blow shofar?
Yeah.
No. Well, so seemingly you would not have to blow shofar, because what do you have to, again, the goal of shofar is to tell people to refrain from work, right? But there's no work you have to refrain from when you go from Shabbos to Yom Tov. To the contrary, Shabbos to Yom Tov is being more lenient. Would you do Havdalah from Shabbos to Yom Tov? Yes, you do.
Yeah.
That's a Yak Nahaz we do. No, Shabbos to Yom Tov. We do Havdalah because Shabbos to Yom Tov is going down in sanctity. So again, Matzah Shabbos. If Yom Tov falls out on a Matzah Shabbos, Mavdilin V'loy Taikin, you do Havdalah because you're going from Shabbos, a higher sanctity to lower sanctity, but you don't blow shofar. But hold on a second. According to Shisha, he says for immediate knowledge, even you would blow shofar even to tell you certain things are permitted, right? So why don't you blow shofar when Shabbos runs into Yom Tov so you'll know that you're allowed to do certain malachas now, like shachting, like cooking. According to Shisha, why don't you blow shofar? Liska kihecha delayed the dishar b'shchita la'alter. They should blow shofar so you know that you're allowed to start shachting as soon as Shabbos ends. Now, some say the question is not that you should actually blow shofar on Shabbos afternoon, but maybe as soon as Shabbos ends, you should at least blow shofar so you'll know that you could be lenient. Rather, the correct interpretation is like Rav Yosef, not like Rav Shisha. That again, the reason why we don't blow shofar on Yom Kippur that goes to Shabbos has nothing to do whether immediate knowledge versus future knowledge, but rather we only blow shofar to tell you stringencies. We don't blow shofar to tell you leniencies, and therefore when Shabbos runs into Yom Tov, we don't blow shofar because we don't have to blow shofar to tell you leniencies. It's only for stringencies. 14b3. Okay. Now, so we've seen that you're allowed to trim vegetables on Yom Kippur from Mincha onward, from 9.5 hours onward. Again, they're already detached from the ground, but again, it was a special rabbinic dispensation to have to do with pain, either to increase your pain of fasting or to decrease your pain of fasting. How about if Yom Kippur is also on Shabbos? Amar Rab Zera, Amar Rav Huna, Rav Zera, or that name of Rav Huna. V'amar and others say Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Huna, the Rav saying Rav Huna. Yom Kippur Meshachayos b'Shabbos. If Yom Kippur fell on Shabbos, Aser b'Knivas Yarak, you are not allowed to. Did I say Nikivas before or Knivas?
Knivas.
I might have said Nikivas. The word is actually Knivas, which is trimming. I was going with the word Nikivas, there's like making a hole, but the word here is Knivas. So again, Rav Zera said, Rav Huna v'Amar Amar Abba Amar Huna Yom Kippur Meshachayos b'Shabbos. Yom Kippur fell on Shabbos, Aser b'Knivas Yarak. you're not allowed to trim vegetables. Amr Rav Mana. Rav Mana said, Tana was taught in a brayso. How do we know that if Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos, you're not allowed to do this trimming of the vegetables? Shabbos son. It says regarding Shabbos, it's a Shabbos son, like a solemn rest. Shavais, you should rest from work, which means even the cutting of vegetables that was okay for Yom Kippur, it is not okay for Shabbos. Lamai. Now, what type of cutting is this brayso referring to? It's not clear. It doesn't say the trimming of the vegetables. It just says you're not allowed to cut the vegetables when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos. What type? Are we talking about a biblical malacha? Let's say the vegetables are attached to the ground and you're doing kotzer, you're harvesting them. It's already written, you're not allowed to do any work. So you don't have to expound the word Shabbos son to tell me that you can't cut vegetables on Shabbos. Anyways, you can't do any malacha on Shabbos. Rather, seemingly is talking about the trimming of the vegetables. So we see from this brayso that the trimming of the vegetables, which the rabbis permitted after Mincha Tam Yom Kippur, is not allowed if Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba Rav Chia has a name. Yochanan Yom Kippur Shechos b'Shabbos. If Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos, mutter b'knivas yarek. It is permitted the trimming of vegetables. So Rav Chia bar Abba, in the name of Yochanan, argues on the opinion. He holds it would be okay. Now, obviously, we just quoted a brayso a minute ago that argues on that. Meisvei will challenge us. We just had this price. How do you know the Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos? You're not allowed to cut vegetables. Tamalamar Shabbos Sona says Shabbos Sona, solemn rest. Shavais, you should rest. Now, Lamai, what is this referring to? This cutting? Is it a biblical malacha of detaching from the ground, or is it just a rabbinic malacha of trimming? So Lamai, what? Ilem malacha. It's a biblical malacha of harvesting. V'haksiv, it's already written loisasa malacha. Don't do any labor. You don't have to expound for the word Shabbos son. Anyways, we know it's a biblical malacha. Elalav b'knivas yarek. Seems like it's talking about the issue of trimming the vegetables. So we see that trimming vegetables and Yom Kippur that falls on Shabbos would be forbidden. Whereas the low, no. La'olam malacha. Really, this brayso is only talking about the real biblical malacha of harvesting these vegetables. And it's coming to teach us that there's both a negative commandment not to break Shabbos, plus a positive commandment to refrain from doing malacha on Shabbos. But it could be trimming of vegetables that was allowed on Yom Kippur, would be allowed on Shabbos. Tanya Kavai Rabbi Yochanan, we actually learned in a brayso like Rabbi Yochanan, Yom Kippur Shechos b'Shabbos, Yom Kippur fall on Shabbos, mutter b'knivas yarek. The trimming of vegetables will be permitted. The exact opposite. So we see two strong opinions here, whether it be okay or not. Mifatzin begoizim, you're also allowed to crack nuts, which is you're allowed to crack the shell and the meat of the nut may be removed. Umefarkas and burmainim, you're allowed to break open pomegranates min mincha mala from the time of mincha onward. Mipnei agmas nefesh, because of the distress of the fast. Which again, so this is again a special Yom Kippur dispensation, which is the machlokas of applies to if Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos, that in order to intense, and because of the distress of the fast, you're allowed to do this. Now again, there's two opinions in the commentaries. Some say we want to increase the distress of your fast. Since on Yom Kippur there's a mitzvah to cause yourself anguish. So if you're trimming vegetables, but you can't eat them now, that actually increases your anguish on Yom Kippur. That's why some say it's okay. Others say the opposite, that if you know that tonight you're not going to be allowed to eat until you go through spend a half an hour trimming your vegetables, we don't want to cause you that extra anguish, and therefore we allowed it on Yom Kippur. So again, different opinions regarding this. Devei Rav Yehuda Mekanve Karava, the members of the household of Yehuda would trim cabbage on Yom Kippur for consumption after Yom Kippur. Devei Rabba Gardi Kare, members of the household of Rabba would scrape pumpkins. Kivin the Chazad Havik Hamacharfi. However, when Rabba saw that they're doing this before the time of Mincha, remember this rabbinic dispensation was only from Mincha and onward, which is 9.5 hours in the day. Once he saw that people in his household were doing it before the Mincha time, where there is definitely not allowed. He said to them, he said to them, a letter arrived from the west, from Eretz Yisrael, the Rabbi Yochanan, in Rabbi Yochanan's name, that he said you are not allowed to do any more food preparation on Yom Kippur. Now the commentators say Rabbi Yochanan never wrote that ruling. So he told his household, he got a letter from Rabbi Yochanan that no more food preparations in Yom Kippur. They say Rabbi Yochanan never wrote it. But he was quoting Rabbi Yochanan because he knew that basically he was concerned, since the whole dispensation was only after 9.5 hours and the people of the household were doing something that was wrong, he made up this letter in order to stop them from doing something wrong. which sounds like a lie, but the commentaries say this is okay. If people are doing something wrong, and the only way to stop them is to tell them a ruling that somebody said, even though it's not true, but the person would agree to that ruling, you're allowed to do it. So he knew they were not allowed to do it, but he knew if he told them not to do it, they wouldn't listen to him. So therefore, he quoted Rabbi Yochanan saying that you're not allowed to do it. Mazel tov, Hadron Alach Kisharim. Does everybody have these new volumes here?
Yep.
All right, let's just start the Mishnah. Yeah, Gary has a question.
I understand the holiness of Shabbos. And yet, for all on Saturday, how are we allowed to not eat?
Gary wants to know if the Shabbos sanctity is holier than Yom Kippur, so if Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos, you should be required to eat to honor the Shabbos. Very interesting question. The answer is that Hashem says you're not allowed to eat Yom Kippur, period.
Right.
That's a good question, but that's the answer. The answer is Hashem said you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur. It's interesting. There was one time in history when they did eat on Yom Kippur. Does anybody know when that was? There was one time in history when they actually ate on Yom Kippur.
Is that when Shlomo,
When we were
What was I saying?
Torah,
Steve, what was that?
Shlomo dedicated the temple?
Yes, it says when they dedicated the Beis Hamikdash, there was so much rejoicing they ate even on Yom Kippur. But other than that, you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur, period. But it's a good question Gary's asking. But the answer is, bottom line is, Yom Kippur, even if it falls on Shabbos, you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur, period.
our son and David have been today at the Mount Sinai where our souls were so pure that God had forgiven us, we didn't need to ask him for any more forgiveness.
I hear, but I guess not. Yeah, I hear. Good question though. All right, let's just begin the next parak over here. If you have the volume, great. If not, just listen in. Okay, new topic over here. So this is a halacha which we'll see about. We're going to get used to this. Basically, that if a person has a fire, chas v'shalom, so we'll see the rabbis were concerned if you start saving things from your fire, you'll get so caught up that you might come to put out the fire. And therefore, they had rules about what you're allowed to save and what you're not allowed to save from the fire. Now, even when we allow you to save from the fire, it's not talking about that you're breaking any biblical issues, only rabbinic issues where they sometimes allow. So we're talking about that you would save things from the fire by carrying them to a courtyard, which either will allow you to break the rabbinic ban on not saving things from a fire. Again, let's get this straight. The rabbis did not want you saving things from a fire because they're concerned if you start saving things, you get so caught up in protecting your property, you'll end up putting out the fire. Okay? However, there will be certain things the rabbis allowed you to save from the fire, which is not allowing you to break anything biblical, but we're allowed to break two rabbinic bans. Number one is certain things will allow you to break the ban on saving things from the fire. And number two, will allow you to break shitufei mavos, which if you have alleyways next to each other, you have to combine them by putting food in one place before Shabbos. That rabbinic ban will allow you to break for certain things, okay? But nothing biblical are we allowing you to break. So let's see this Mishnah here. Kol kisvei hakodesh matzilin oisan mipnei hadleika. All holy scriptures, whether they're Torah scrolls or any part of Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim, the Torah, the prophets, and the scriptures, there are 24 books altogether. Any of those books you're allowed to save from a fire. Now we'll see it. Let's say they're written in English, or let's say they're written in Greek. Does it make any difference what they're written in? And we'll see certain languages you actually were not allowed to write them in, but maybe even if you did write them in, you're still allowed to save them. So Bein Shekar and Behem, whether we read from them publicly in Shul and Shabbos, so we read from Navi, but we don't read from Ksuvim. So Torah we read from, the 5 books of Moshe. The books of Navi we read from, but the books of scriptures we don't read from in public. However, you are Bein Shekar, so whether we read from them in Shul or not makes no difference to this dispensation that you're allowed to save them from the fire. So Bein Shekar and Behan, whether we read them publicly in Shul, like the Navi scrolls, or Bein Shekar and Behan, whether we don't read from them like the Ksuvim scrolls. And even though they're written in any language other than Hebrew, to Unim Gniza, they still have to be hidden away, which means there's another concept of putting things in shemus, that we bury them or we hide them away when we're done with them, instead of just throwing them in garbage. You have to treat them with respect, even if they're written in other languages. Why don't we read from Ksuvim? because of neglect of the base medrash. So basically, let me just read note 5 over here, just to get this over here, what happened with the Ksuvim. In Talmudic times, it was customary to lecture in the study hall for the general population on Shabbos. And these lectures were included discourses on various practical aspects of the halacha. This could not be done during the week when most people were occupied with earning a livelihood. In order to maximize attendance, the rabbis prohibited the reading of Ksuvim, the scriptures on Shabbos, since people might become engrossed in them and fail to attend the lectures. Kesuvim were regarded as the most engaging part of scriptures, as evidenced by the fact that these books were read to the Kohen Gadol on the night of Yom Kippur to keep from falling asleep. Since the lectures pertained to daily observances, it was considered more beneficial to the public to attend the lectures than to study Kesuvim. So it's just very interesting. We don't want people to get too engaged in learning Torah because we don't want them to miss the classes the rabbis are good. For sure, we don't want them reading other books. It was a very interesting. I believe this was even in the practice in Europe before the war. Everybody knew Shabbos was a time they study Torah. Nowadays, Shabbos is a time people fall asleep, but people worked a lot during the week, and Shabbos was a time that everybody just goes to shul and they learn Torah. Yes, Steve.
Are the Megillos considered Ksuvim or Nevi'im?
They are. I was thinking about that. I'm assuming. They're Ksuvim, so I assume we mean the ones other than the Megillas, I guess. The novelty is even those scriptures that, you want to know regarding people reading them?
Well, just the whole thing.
We do read them.
We read the Megillas. Most
Right.
congregations in the world read the Megillas on
Yeah, I guess it means, the other ones. Yeah, all right. Shkoyach. Let's just read the Shabbos Kitchen here.
Thank you, Ellie.
Welcome. Okay, Shabbos Kitchen here. So again, let's just go over this. So adding hot water to cold water. One may not pour hot water from a kettle or urn. We might have done this. I know we skipped one though. You're not allowed to pour hot water from a kettle or urn into cold water. Because again, cold water, you're allowed to cook it in a kli sheni, but not in a kli rishon. Or you're not allowed to pour on it from a kli rishon. So one may not pour hot water from a kettle or urn into a cup containing some cold water. It is, however, permissible to add a small amount of hot water to a large quantity of cold water if the resulting mixture will not be 110 degrees. Okay, which again, if you wash out your mug and you still have droplets on the bottom of uncooked water, you can't have the urn water go into that. That's a problem because then you're cooking droplets with Iroi Kli Rishon. If the droplets were cooked already, there are two opinions to whether that's a problem for little droplets where they're worried about heating them up again. Pouring hot water into a wet cup. One should not pour hot water from a kettle or urn into a wet cup, as the droplets of cold water clinging to the walls of the cup will be cooked by the flow of hot water. If the droplets of water were previously boiled, one is not obligated to dry the cup before pouring hot water into it. Nevertheless, it is preferable to first dry the cup or to shake out the remaining liquid. Okay? Serving soup with a ladle. When using a ladle to serve soup from a pot, the ladle should not, we might have done this, either way it's good to review. The ladle should not be allowed to cool between servings. If some time elapsed and the ladle did cool off, it is preferable that one shake any excess liquid from the ladle before reinserting it into the pot to avoid recooking the droplets of cold soup remaining in the ladle. The same holds true when replacing the cover on a pot of hot food. If the cover was left off long enough to cool, it is preferable that one shake off any liquid from the cover before replacing the pot. Note in the following chapter, we'll see that a ladle may not be used at all unless the pot is first removed from the blech. Let me just go over this to get this clear. Okay, again, cooking cold water, okay? Cold water, you're allowed to cook in a kli sheni. It's one of the few exceptions to the rule that you're allowed to cook in a kli sheni, but you're not allowed to cook cold water in a kli rishon or with a pouring of a kli rishon. So, if you wash out your mug and you have droplets in the mug, right? And then I want to pour from my urn or into that mug. That's a problem because what's happening is you're having the pourings of a kli rishon cooking the droplets in the cup. Okay, so what happens if I have a cup of coffee and I have water in it and there's a little bit left, little droplets left in the bottom, and I want to make another cup of coffee? Am I required to wipe out those droplets? So again, this is where it gets complicated. I just want to point this out. There's a major machlokas like this. We know that you're not allowed to reheat recook cold water. That if hot water cooled off, we know that you're not allowed to heat it again, right? So you would imagine if you have droplets left over from your cup of coffee, it should be forbidden to heat them up again. However, if you only have small droplets, there are some leniencies because you really don't care about whether they cook or not because you don't care about those droplets. So since reheating water that cooled off is a machlokas, okay? So reheating water that cooled off is machlokas, whether you're allowed to recook it or not. We pass you're not allowed to recook it. And droplets you don't care about. Therefore, according to the letter of law, if you have droplets that were cooked already, to reheat them is not such a big deal because they're only droplets and they're already cooked once before. So there it's preferable to dry it, but not mandatory. So again, so just bottom line, I know this is a little confusing, but bottom line, if you have droplets in your cup and you want to pour water from the urn into that cup, you have to ask yourself the question, if the droplets were not cooked yet, so those are droplets from your sink because you washed out their cup, it is required to dry out that cup before you pour water in from a kli rishon into it. So if you want to dip that into your urn or pour into one, you are required to dry off the droplets. If the droplets were cooked already, so there, even though you're not allowed to reheat them, but it's machlokas regarding droplets reheating them if they're cooked already, therefore it is preferable to dry them, but not mandatory. So if the droplets were not cooked, it is mandatory to dry them. If they were cooked and now they cooled off, it is preferable to do them. To dry it off. So bottom line is you're best off just drying it. We're talking about here though when the water coming in is from a kli rishon. If the water coming in is from a kli sheni, you don't have to worry about it at all because water in a kli sheni is not a problem. Okay? All right. Any questions? All right, we're almost done with these and then we'll move on to the next status. Okay, shkayach, everybody have a good day. See you at 8 o'clock tomorrow.
All right.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Pleasure.
Everybody.
Yeah, Chicago.